Many times when you are making a decision really quickly, that's actually your intuition. Your intuition is making that decision for you, and then you second guess yourself. When we cancel on people, it's most likely because it wasn't a heck yeah. It's an important skill to learn. It doesn't sound like a skill, but it is a skill, because the more you practice making decisions quickly, you start trusting yourself more. You start having that confidence. Hello and welcome back to 22 Elevate. My name is Tip and I am your host. Today we are talking about decision overload. We're going to talk about why we have decision overload and what you can do about it. Have you ever sat down and you're going to watch a show, but you're on Netflix or you're on Hulu or HBO Max or some sort of streaming service, and you're just scrolling? And you're scrolling for 5 minutes. Then it turns into 10 minutes. Then it turns into 20 minutes. And then you just end up watching something that you have watched before, because your brain is overly stimulated with choices. And you're just like, there's too many choices here. So I'm just going to pick something that I know, because even after all this time, let's just go with something that I know. Why do we do that? Because sometimes our brain just needs to choose the easy path because it is exhausted from the overload of choices that we need to make in a day. And this doesn't just happen for TV shows. This doesn't just happen for movies. This happens in our everyday life more than you think it does. And it can be debilitating. Like, how many arguments have you gotten into with your significant other where you're like, can you just make up your mind where you want to eat? And they're like, well, why don't you choose? And you choose something, they're like, no, I don't want to go there. Oh, it's the worst conversation ever. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Ready? Red or pink? Green or blue? Black or white? Black beans or pinto beans? Were those easy decisions to make? Generally, yeah. Generally, for those kinds of questions, your brain just goes, oh, okay, those are easy. But what if I ask you, like, what color socks do you wear with an outfit that is blue top and black pants? Then you might have to think about it for a second. Some people will go really fast and they'll be like, oh, white, oh, black, oh, green, or whatever. What about, what should I have for lunch? Well, now there's, well, where are you located? What's around you? How far are you willing to drive? Are you craving anything? What about, do I move or do I not move? Well, now there's more keys that come into play with that. Then there's, do I break up with this person? Do I not break up with this person? Even more keys that surround that. So these little pieces that have to come together make that decision become bigger and bigger and bigger until you're just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have known people that have decided not to break up with their significant other, or like they're waiting because it is just too much responsibility on them. It is too many decisions, such a big decision, and it's too hard. And all they want is to take that responsibility off their shoulder, even just for a second, even just for a little period of time, for them not to have to make a decision on that. So why don't we actually make decisions? Sometimes we have choice overload. Like, you ever go into a store and there's just so many things there and you're just like, I don't know what to pick. Like, coffee is a really good example of that. If you go to a store, there's a whole aisle of coffee. This brand, that brand, it has this, it has that, medium roast, dark roast. Such an array of things to choose from. And sometimes what our brain does is it just goes for the easiest solution. So if you've tried something before, you tried a coffee before and it's good, you're going to go with that one, because sometimes it's just easier to pick what you already know versus something completely different. And there are some people like myself that kind of like to go out of the box, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to pick a new one every time. But that's a decision in itself to be able to do that. But when I do that, I'm not standing there for hours going, okay, well, there's this and that and that. I have to tell myself, I'm giving myself a limited time. If I don't like the other choices, I'm going to go with that one. That's an easy way to fix decision overload, but we'll go over that a little later. Some people avoid decisions because they want to avoid responsibility. Like I mentioned before, sometimes it's such a big decision. Sometimes it's such a hard decision. And so they want to avoid it as long as they can, because once you make a decision, you have to deal with the consequences of those decisions, and they're just not ready to deal with those consequences yet. Some people don't make a decision because they're tired. They are tired. They're on energy saving mode. So it is hard for them to make an additional decision. I know for me, when I am overly exhausted, I get in that position as well. Like there was one time that me and one of my friends, we went to Las Vegas, and by the end of the night, we were so hungry and fatigued that we were just like, we needed to get some place to eat, and we just couldn't freaking figure out a place to eat. It was like, okay, we stopped here, and it was like, oh, it's gonna be an hour wait. So then we walked a little further. Oh, it's gonna be a 2-hour wait. We walked a little further. And by the time we actually figured out where to eat, which ended up being like a falafel stand, we realized during that time that we walked and was making all these indecisions on a place, we could have already been inside that first place eating, because it took us an hour to get to the falafel place. But that was bad decision making because you're tired. So in cases like that, just make a decision and stick with it. That's what you just got to do. You just got to stick to your darn decision. Sometimes we don't make decisions because we don't want to make a mistake. This often happens with relationships. If you're in a relationship, you kind of think you have to break up with that person, but you're just not sure. And you kind of go, I don't know what to do. It's because you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to make that rash decision and make a mistake. And so you sit in it for a while, and you end up making that decision anyways, but you just had to sit in it for a while. And it's good to take those pauses too. So what happens when you have choice overload? Your mind is working extra hard. So for example, if you were to need to pick something like a red shirt or a pink shirt, and I'm just using those two examples because I have a pink shirt sitting over there and I don't know why it's over there, so it keeps catching my eye. So if you needed to pick a pink shirt or a red shirt, well, your brain, it weighs out the answers. So it's like, well, it depends on what kind of pants you wear. What kind of look are you going for? Pink is good for this. Red is good for this. Maybe this one looks a certain way. Maybe this one looks another way. Your brain is constantly making those decisions for you, even without you consciously thinking about it. It's constantly working in there to go. And what happens when we are indecisive about something is our brains bounce. So it goes, okay, remember, the reasons for the pink were blah, 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 blah. The reasons for the red were blah, 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 blah. And it goes back and forth, weighing each situation. And every time it does that, you get more and more and more tired. And by the end of that, you are exhausted because your brain has constantly had to battle yourself. So the way to solve that, make a decision. I know, like, that is like the silliest thing. You're like, I'm trying to friggin' find a way to make the decision. And I'm telling you that sometimes You just got to talk to yourself, inner talk, and be like, girl, I just need to make a decision, and stick with it. Because when you're bouncing back and forth like that, you're just taking the energy out of yourself. So just make a decision, choose a decision. A lot of times if you make the wrong decision, you can always fix it somehow, okay? There's always a way to fix that decision. If you can't fix a decision, if this is like life and death kind of situation, like if you are like a judge and you need to make a decision, make sure you make the decision as early in the day as possible, because the earlier on in the day, you're fresh. This is not just for judges, this is for everybody. You are fresh to make decisions. By the end of the day, you are most likely to miss something, a little piece of the puzzle. If you can pause it, like if you have to make a decision at the end of the day, but you can pause that and make a decision the next day, I would do that. Opt to make it the next day, especially if you're tired, okay? Put a pin in it. What else can you do? You can imagine making the decision for someone else. The reason why it's hard for us to make decisions for ourselves sometimes is because of the consequences. We think of the consequences for ourselves. Like, if you're in a bad situation and your consequence is that person is going to be awful to me if I report them with HR, I'm not going to be able to work in a non-hostile environment, and you're thinking of all these things, but you also know that this person needs to be reported to HR, you're going to have that internal conflict. So sometimes it's easier to think of it as if it was for somebody else. If the other person was your friend or something like that, and you are giving them advice, then the consequences are not on you. And then you can think about the consequences later. But at least ethically, you will know that you are making the right decision. You just have to be okay with the consequences. The other thing is you can ask for help. So this is advice from somebody else. Now, you need to watch who you're taking advice from. This is so key. Like, if I have a relationship question, I am not going to ask the person that has been divorced 4 times. That is not who I'm going to ask for relationship advice. I'm going to ask that person who's been in a relationship for 20 years. Okay? I am not going to ask the wrong person for advice. If I have a business decision that I'm going to make, I am not going to my parents. I love my parents. I am not going to them for advice. If I need to make a decision on if I need to move or not, I am not going to ask. I have a friend who loves all the bougie things, and there's nothing wrong with bougie things. I love bougie things. But I know that if I ask him, he's going to have me look at the most bougie places, and you know what? I'm gonna fall for them because I love them too. But I know if I'm gonna make a smart, logical decision, I can't get my emotions into it, and asking him would make my emotions get into it. Okay. Now, when you actually make a decision, what happens? That energy that you were using to try to make that decision, it doesn't need to be latched on to there anymore. So it is opened up for you to use that energy somewhere else. A lot of times when we're feeling fatigued, it's because our energy is being held other places. And that's why it feels so good when we accomplish tasks too. Because not only do we get that happy hormone hit, but because our energy is released from there. We only have the capacity to take on about 7 things in our lives at the same time. So if you got children, that's already 1. If you got a spouse or a significant other, that's 2. You got work can be divided into multiple things. So could your spouse and your children, okay? Not only those things, but like, what about yourself? what about everything else that's happening? You only have a certain amount of capacity. It's like if you're juggling plates, you only have room for 7 plates. I know like your arms are not going to fit 7 plates, but like hypothetically, you only have 7 plates that you can hold. If you hold more than that, it's going to crumble. Okay? So whatever you can take off your plate, off your shoulders, do it. Make that decision as quickly as you can and stick to it. Most of the times, that's the hardest part, is to stick to that decision. But no, many times when you are making a decision really quickly, that's actually your intuition. Your intuition is making that decision for you, and then you second guess yourself. Especially people in the medical field. I was just talking to a friend about this. He's in the medical field, and he was talking about, okay, well, I thought this first, but then my medical brain goes, well, what if it's this, and what if it's that, what if it's the hormones, what if it's this? Go with your intuition. Go with that gut feeling, that 1 second feeling that you have in the beginning. That's probably your right answer. Go with your gut. Go with your intuition. Trust it. Learn to trust it. And when you start trusting it, it starts expanding. Abraham Hicks likes to say, and my friend reminded me of this the other day, is if it's not a heck yes, it's a no. If it's not a heck yes, it's a no. How many times do we have to really look into that? For example, I wasn't feeling really great on Saturday, but I had already made plans with a friend. And I didn't care how not good I felt. I was gonna go do the things with my friend because what we were doing was a heck yeah. We were gonna go eat, we were gonna go float, salt room, have a nice conversation after, relax. That was a heck yeah moment for me. I didn't care how I was feeling. When we cancel on people, it's most likely because it wasn't a heck yeah. I mean, granted, there are some things that can stop us, like being sick or something like that, like actually being sick. But most of the times, a lot of us cancel because we're just like meh about the plans. So I want you to think about what plans you've made lately and then canceled. Was it because it wasn't a heck yeah? Could be. That's all I got for you guys. I hope that helped with your decision making and reasons why you may not be making those decisions. Decision making is an important thing to learn. It's an important skill to learn. It doesn't sound like a skill, but it is a skill because the more you practice making decisions quickly, you start trusting yourself more. You start having that confidence in yourself, and that is really, really valuable. All right, I will see you guys later. Bye. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on today's journey. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us because it helps us create more content and it continues to make a difference in people's lives. Remember to tap that notification bell so you never miss one of our latest videos. And if you have thoughts and experiences and questions that you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you and we'd love to hear what you want to talk about. Also, be sure to hit up our website at 22elevate.com for challenges, online and live courses, and our mentorship program. There's also a lot of free stuff there that you guys can also get. So make sure you go visit that. Thank you guys. Bye.